Looking for some inspiration? You've come to the right show. Step into your divine feminine energy with me as I spill the tea on leadership and life. Hi, I'm Tracy M., your host here on Brave Girls, and I've got your back, and no mean girls are allowed. I've been called the fairy godmother of storytelling, and my gift is to unearth people's stories, share them, and make the world a better place for all of us. So sit back, relax, and listen in as we send some more positive vibes out into the universe. Enjoy the show.
Be Wise, Bianca Wise, thank you so much for being on the show today. I just want to introduce you to the people so that they can know a little bit more about you and how you became the mindset snob. And, one of the things I think about you, Bianca, is your story is so inspiring. And, when I think about you, I think about this girl, this latchkey girl from West Baltimore, who went to Dunbar High, that was a poet. I think there's a couple other famous people that went to Dunbar. I don't know, Carmelo Anthony, Muggsy Bogues, and B. Wise, right?
That's it.
So, you know what I mean? And so a lot, those are NBA players for people that don't know. But, and then just your rise in the Baltimore County Fire Department to your little side hustle of Be Foxy, where you took it really serious, to where you are now as a 7-figure entrepreneur, global speaker, like I think of you as like a global humanitarian with your second book in you. And the folks, I just want you to know this is my birthday twin, my Aries birthday twin, and through the divine we met, and we have just connected in our city and are out here doing our thing, showing up, showing out, trying to lead the people through the crazy. So welcome to the show, Bianca, and let's just get started. Let's start with your story as a West Baltimore latchkey kid, and you're growing up and you're with your brother, I guess, and then where you are today and sort of how you became the resilient person that you are, because that is like a really good word to describe you and a big part of the types of things you're teaching people, right? Through your story, through your experiences. So I'm just going to throw it back to you.
Well, thank you, Tracy. You know how I feel about you. Like, you are just the most amazing person. And on top of you being a birthday twin and we're Aries, like, you just out here doing it and a great person to model and follow. And you look pretty today. So, but okay, let me start. How did I become so resilient? So, being a young Black female growing up in the city of Baltimore to a single mom is in me. So you mentioned latchkey kid. Um, so for if anybody's listening and they don't know what latchkey kids are, we are the people that are now living between the ages of like 40 and 55. And we pretty much um you know, our parents were out the home for the majority of the day at work, and which meant that we had to pretty much get ourselves to school, get ourselves back home from school, do our homework. So we were like little adults at a certain age. And again, my mom was a single mom of two, very young. She had my brother at 16. She had me at 23. And, there was no other support in the home. She had to go to work to make sure both of her kids were being taken care of. And I watched my mom leave out at 5 o'clock in the morning. She worked for the federal government in DC. She worked for the FBI. And she did that for 25 years. And very early on, my mom she was like a boss. She was that boss that people, when we throw around that word boss today, but people don't really know what that means, how layered that is, how complex, the discipline that is required to wake up every day at 4 in the morning so you can be in DC by 7, at work at 8, back home by 6, 2 children. and never heard or saw my mom complain ever. We never wanted for anything, and we were by no means middle class. Like she was that parent that made like a penny more than what was required for us to get reduced lunch or free. And
Right.
so, but everything that I can think of that I ever wanted, that I asked for, no matter how outrageous it was, like she did it. And just growing up and watching that, I did it did not allow me to have an excuse of laziness or defeat. I just really walked in her shoes. And once I got onto high school, you know, um, this is where my career path started to unfold. And
Hmm.
so Paul Lawrence Dunbar locally is a allied health professional high school. So generally people go there with an idea or aspirations to enter into the healthcare field.
I didn't
And when
realize
I got,
that. Okay.
yeah, so they have so many different programs. Even still, back when I was there, they had a dental assistant program, an
Right.
EMT program, a CNA program, and being exposed to all of that, very early on, I knew, like I wasn't clear on what I wanted to do, but I knew it had to be helping people, like it just had to.
Right.
And so again, being able to have that type of exposure, um, and the ability to have a mom, or I'm not going to say the ability, but the blessing to have that mom that had just work ethic. I really believe that's why my journey into healthcare has been so successful, even though very unconventional, but still very successful because of the passion I have for people, fixing them. like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
you're a
fixing,
helper. Yeah, you're a
right,
helper. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah. Yeah, that's part of your purpose.
right,
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, and then, you know, I want you to talk about sort of your rise in the fire department and kind of,
mhm,
some of the, you know, kind of the obstacles like that you
mm,
faced in this sort of good old white boy network of trying to keep you down, even,
yeah,
and like having to just get up and put yourself in that environment day after day to get to where you got to.
yeah. So, and for anybody that's listening, you don't have to take a traditional route. And
Yep.
so, what do I mean by that? So once I graduated from high school, I dabbled into college, but then I realized very early on, college, I didn't want to do it. It
Right.
wasn't that I wasn't capable. Like I've always been a very intellectual, very smart woman. Didn't want to go 4 more years at least to school. Like I already did
Right.
12. What do you mean I need to do
Right.
the four?
Exactly.
And so that jump started my career though. So for a very short time, I actually worked with my mom at FBI
Mm,
because my mom said, "Well, if you're not going to go to college, you better get a job, and it better be a good job."
right.
So I ended up at in DC at FBI headquarters, and it wasn't until 9/11,
Oh,
September
right.
11th, 2001, that it absolutely clicked for me. And as crazy as this story sounds, and how it sounded to my mom and the rest of my family, when I finally made it home from DC on September 11th, 2001, I said, I want to save people. I want to be one of those first responders that
Mhm.
is going into, ground zero to help. And my family were like, what?
Yeah, you've lost your mind. running into danger.
So my very first pivot, a month after 9/11, I resigned from the FBI and I took a job at Sinai Emergency Room. And I worked there as what they call a patient care technician, which is pretty much a nurse assistant. And I absolutely fell in love with anything trauma. So the gunshots, the stabs, the strokes, the heart attacks. If I had that ability to jump in, I was on it. And so through that, I was able to meet a lot of EMS responders, the fire
Right.
department coming in to drop off pretty much our customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just got to know a lot of those people, got information on how they did it, what is the career path. And I ended up taking a paramedic course through BCCC and got hired with Baltimore County Fire Department. Started as a paramedic firefighter. And oh boy, so the very first day that I walked into Baltimore County, I walked in with the confidence and the knowing that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But then the culture just kind of slapped me across my face. Like, girl,
Right. Right.
these ain't your people.
Right. Right.
This
Right.
isn't anymore. This isn't the Park Heights community anymore. This is like some real deal Holyfield stuff.
Right.
And but again, I always align back to the resiliency and the discipline I saw in my mom. I was never going to allow anybody to um make me believe that I wasn't capable,
Right.
make them think that I wasn't capable.
Right.
And so from day one, I just went hard with everything. All the training, when the recruit class trained, I trained harder.
Right.
When we trained as a group, I was there early in the morning. I stayed late so I could,
Just like your mom. Just like your mom.
exactly,
Just like
exactly.
your mom. Yep.
And so then when we graduated from recruit school and I got my first assignment in at Catonsville, then I had to deal with um being in station life as the only female. And
Mm-hmm.
station life, like the everyday punching the clock, we show up, we run
Right.
calls, we go home, is extremely different from recruit school. And that added just another layer of
Right.
hazing,
Yes. Uncomfortableness. Yeah.
exactly.
And even like when you were in the ER, you know, with these trauma patients, at least you had somebody in front of you and you could do your thing to make them better. And that the environment there probably, even if it did have a little element of that, it didn't matter because you were close. You were like
Exactly.
right there with the patient. Whereas this
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
Mm. Now because I was so ambitious,
Right.
I showed up now in a way where some of my colleagues were drawn to me because they saw that I was ambitious and
Right.
they knew that I was capable. They knew that I wanted to keep learning. And then on the flip side of that, a lot of my colleagues, men, became threatened by that
Absolutely.
because I'm showing up top notch and now it's exposing their weaknesses.
Absolutely.
So those first 9 years as a paramedic firefighter were they were peculiar,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely were like every day it was teaching moments. One, I had to grow up very fast.
Yeah.
I had to become mature in how I responded to some of the things that were being said to me, how I was being treated by some.
Right.
And initially, I was very defensive. I just came in and I had a defensive way about me because I felt everybody was an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And until I was able to back down a little bit, I could then start to see that I did have some allies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were white men. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I have a very good um memory of a Captain Cullum. He was so different. Captain Cullum, he had the Confederate flag on his truck. He played a banjo. Like he but Captain Cullum was one of the first to say, Bianca, I got you. Okay. I'm
Wow.
not gonna allow anybody to like just show up, do your job, and you're good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like refreshing moments for me. Few and far between, but
Right.
yeah,
Right. 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 Right.
yeah.
I love how you you took the situation and you said, what is it here to teach me? And I think that's the mindset flip that a lot of people have to make when they find themselves in these situations. And um is the highs and the lows, right? Everything's teaching you something and leading you to something somewhere down the road that you're going to
Hmm.
tap into that. And then you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, the reason I responded the way I did today is because of something happened to me 7, 8, 9 years ago, where I grew and learned and changed my mindset on how to respond, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I love that. I love that. So like as you're kind of like moving through the system, like what was that moment, that light bulb moment where you were like, it's time for me to get out, step out and be on my own? Like what was that? Like, was there like a straw that broke the camel's back, or was it lots of straws leading up
A
to
whole
it?
lot of straws. A
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and I was just talking to someone about this. So, throughout my throughout my journey as a paramedic firefighter, so I was in that position for 9 years,
Right.
and I started to learn myself, personally, that I belong in leadership. That's
Yes,
just me.
absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
I can't follow for too long. Like I'm a follow because that's what leaders do first. They step up and
Correct.
they follow and then they lead. But then through that, I started to learn how not to be a leader,
Oh,
meaning
yeah. The bad
the
ones are the best
leadership that was
teachers.
it was horrible, right?
Right. Right.
And so us as Aries, we tend to be the change that we want to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to put my leadership hat on and promote.
Mm-hmm.
And I promoted to the rank of lieutenant,
Mm-hmm.
making me the first Black woman in the history of Baltimore County Fire Department to reach that rank.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was a 180-year history. And that just opened up it was like a video game. Like now you
Right.
on this level, and it just unlocks a whole nother monster that you have
Yes.
to tackle.
Right.
So, I mean, from day one, just authority being undermined again. I'm being labeled all of these negative words. I'm aggressive, I'm attitudinal, where I'm watching my colleagues display similar behavior and
Or
they're
worse.
confident,
Yeah.
right? Or
Or
worse, but
worse.
they're confident and, and every day, when you're the first of something, I just always like to share that there's a contrast, sometimes a dark side to that, because you are the person that is changing the normal.
Yes.
You're challenging the status quo. So it was just a very frustrating time from day one, honestly, through
Mm-hmm.
years. Okay, I can tell so many stories of, again, my authority being undermined. I'm being held responsible for stuff that it was just crazy.
Right.
And so after years and years and years, and I believe a lot of people are in positions where they love what they do, but they just hate the job. They hate
Mm.
the environment. And that was me. Like I was showing up to work every day, hating my job, hating the environment. And hate is just a strong word, but I would walk into stations and I wouldn't speak. And that's not me.
Right,
I'm
right, right,
I'm a sociable, likable, but and then you just start asking yourself, like, is this worth it?
right,
Like, is it worth my emotional health? Is it worth my mental health? Is it worth my physical health?
right.
And one day in 2018, I just had this voice come clear as day. I woke up that morning and the voice was like, "You're done." I was like, "I'm done?
I
What
call those
is
divine
going?"
downloads. I call them divine downloads. It's like when you're ready to listen and you get still,
Yep.
you hear shit. At least I do.
My God, it was so loud and clear.
Completely. And then you're like, what? What the
Right,
what?
right. And so I'll never forget. I called out. I
Hmm.
called out from work, and in addition
Which
to
is probably
calling
so
out,
not you, right?
right, exactly. But in addition to me calling out, I said, and oh, by the way, I'm quitting. And my captain was like, "What?"
You're like, I heard a voice. I was told I was done. I'm listening to my voices.
If I remember correctly, they ended up getting a call, and he was like, "Bianca, wait a minute, hold on, let me call you back."
Right, right, right,
Because
right.
and then he called back like not too long after, and he was like, "What is going on? Like, tell me what is happening." And I was like, "Captain, I'm done. Like, I'm good." And I remember the very first thing he said to me was, "Do you need EAP?"
Wow.
I was like,
That's curious.
"Yeah, no, I don't. I
No.
needed EAP. I probably needed EAP when my mom passed away,
Well, yeah.
and the engine crew that showed up to my home, um, to make the story short, I came home and found my mom unconscious in my basement. So I
Hmm.
had to call my own coworkers,
To come.
911. I was just getting off from a 14-hour shift. And they came, they took her to the hospital. She passed away the next day. But the funeral was held at a funeral home that parking lot backs up to one of the firehouses that I worked at. Not near one of my coworkers came to support
Wow.
me at the wake or the funeral of my mom. So I probably needed EAP then, but nobody cared. You know, I
Hmm.
probably needed EAP when I was a lieutenant, very first day, one of the worst calls of my career. And then, I was held accountable for decisions that were made based off of a protocol that we always follow, but I was undermined in front of the entire crew. I needed EAP then, you know,
Right.
but now I'm good.
Yeah, you're like that was a little too late, wrong situation.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
I guess he was trying. I don't know.
Yeah, like, from the captain's perspective, he has bosses, and then that
Oh,
boss has a boss, the
and then he's got to
hierarchy.
explain. Yeah, he's got to
Right,
explain himself,
right.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
well, and when did you start Be Foxy, and what was and that was like your jewelry and fashion like business
Yes.
or like and you were just out there hustling, side hustling like nobody's business. Like
That's
this
it.
is not a hobby business. This is a real deal. I want
Exactly.
to run this like a
Exactly.
P&L with mostly pig.
Exactly. But noticing in my environment that, the stress, the the mental conditioning, I realized because my mom had passed away at such an early age, she had
Mm-hmm.
high blood pressure, she had diabetes, she had all the things. I've always said that that's not going to be my path. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Yeah.
you know, understanding the amount of stress that I was under, I took accountability for myself and started to learn ways that I could have an outlet. So,
Mm-hmm.
Be Foxy Fashion Jewelry was an outlet. I
Okay.
created as a hobby because I love to accessorize. Like I was that little girl that had the doll babies that had the different
Right.
outfits and so Be Foxy Fashion Jewelry came about shortly after I promoted to lieutenant. And
Okay.
again, it started as a hobby and I was just selling jewelry to friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just fell in love with the doing of being a business owner. Even though it was a side hustle,
Right.
I loved it. I love when people would inbox me and say, "Hey, how much is this?" And like me being able
Right.
to tell them the price and they buy it and I take their money. Like I just love everything about it. And so I decided to take my side hustle seriously. And over the next several years, I just learned a lot about starting a business, building a business. I went out and I networked. I networked hard. Um, and then B Foxy was able to get a brand ambassador by the name of Tammy Roman, who is known in the reality TV world. Um, at the time, she was with Basketball Wives.
Oh,
And
okay.
then that partnership with Basketball Wives led to the Housewives. And so B Foxy Fashion
Ah.
Jewelry was like all over like the Atlanta scene, like LA, New York.
Oh, I love
Like
that.
it just blew up. But I had so much fun with it. And now in hindsight, I realized that all the intention that I put behind taking my side hustle seriously, it set me up to now be able to lead full time, as an entrepreneur.
So let me ask you this, when did you realize how important mindset was and just kind of you deep dove into the deep end on all this mindset stuff?
You know what? So the very first day of recruit school,
Mhm.
I remember. So they send all the important people in the room, like the union, all the
Oh yeah.
assistant chief,
Muckety mucks.
right, exactly. And they all come in front of you with this perception of power. Like they wear white
Mm.
shirts. So
Yep, yep,
if
yep, yep.
anybody's familiar, yeah, with military, fire, police, the white shirt is the important,
Mhm.
person
Yep.
or ranking official or whatever. And I remember I took a sticky note the very first day of my recruit class, and I wrote on the sticky note that I am going to become an officer within 10 years of my career. I wrote it on the sticky note. And the sticky note stayed with me for my entire career. Every time I went to work, I had it in the back of my locker. So every time I opened up my locker, I had to see it. I had to read it. And when I tell you, so I gave myself 10 years.
Mm.
I was promoted at year 9. And that is when I realized there is some crazy magical power in what you speak to yourself. Not what
Absolutely.
anybody else says,
Absolutely.
not what the statistics say. And from that, you couple that with now I'm promoted, now I'm at another level of stress or whatever. Like I said, I had to figure out ways to um provide an outlet for me. And I just started learning, like, what do I need to do for myself?
Mhm.
So meditation, I started with
Mhm.
a meditation practice, probably started with like 1 minute.
Right, right, right. Oh yeah, me too.
You know,
Like 30 seconds, I'm done.
but every day, just applying, being intentional. Now my meditation is up to at least 20 minutes a day,
Yep.
right? And listening to people that are considered masters in the
Hmm.
mindset industry, and they all say the same things.
They
They might,
absolutely do.
present it. Yeah.
They do. They do. And everything is in the major books of scripture for every major religion too,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
yeah, and if Bianca, the thing I like about you is you have curiosity.
Yep.
And I do think that that has contributed to your success and that you follow your curiosity and you go
Yes,
and
sir.
you sort of like find what you're curious about. And then, but what I like even more about you is that you have the spirit of giving back to change the world and to help other people. So yes, you have like your healthcare agency now that employs a lot of people and helps a lot of clients and families and everything, but you have this spirit about you that you're putting yourself out there for younger women who look like you that you maybe didn't have modeling or speaking truth to when you
Mhm.
were their age, right? Whether they want to be an entrepreneur, and you can say, you don't have to take this traditional path. It's a windy road of how I got to seven figures and I'm getting ready to get the next seven figures, right?
Right.
But like you're like that beacon of light for people who look like you, girls that look like you, and I don't know anybody really that is out there. Lisa Nichols is out there and she's got her story and stuff like that, but like you speak truth too, and
Yes.
you've got the school of hard knocks that you have gone through and you have followed that curiosity. And I love that you're bringing personal growth and development to the community that you're bringing it to, because I really don't know. Like, there's a lot, you got the Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor's past, but
Mhm.
then like all these people that are like, they're just one version of like Jim Rohn or Tony, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like they're descendants of,
Exactly.
of those same personal growth and development people. And so I just love that you see that and you see
Mhm.
the sort of like teaching through storytelling these principles, because that's all they
Yes.
really are, right?
Yep.
Like in
Yep.
your, like I loved when I was reading your pillar 8 resilience. There are 5 ways to become more resilient. One is to, all caps, take action towards your vision, right? And you say ideas without actions don't become goals, they become regrets. The others
Mhm.
are develop a spiritual practice, adapt to holding yourself accountable for everything you do, and know when to rest. But that is the one that I don't think gets enough attention is your mindset. You have to check your mindset more than you check your phone, right?
Yep.
And we are all in the like, let's look at our phone 500 times a
Right.
day for what I don't
Right.
know, to watch other people's highlight
Yeah.
reels. It ain't
Hey,
there.
the drama, the same news we was talking about yesterday. Ain't nothing on that phone.
Right. Right. And then I also like always end the day with self-reflection and affirm that you did their best and that when you wake up tomorrow, you're going to try again. And then check in with those thoughts. What are those thoughts that I'm having? Are they serving me? Are they negative? If they're negative, reject them immediately and replace them with better thoughts. All of us have a responsibility and we have to take accountability to stop and check our mindset and make sure that we're always moving forward with intentions to think
Mhm.
more positively and make sure our thoughts and beliefs are serving us for the better. That's why, and I like this, it's extremely important to surround yourself with like minded people who have been through what you're going through. Frequently, you will need to ask for help or guidance or have a vent session with others who will help you in various ways. And for me, you're that like minded person.
Yeah.
If I'm going down the rabbit hole, I'm not having a good day, I'm like, I gotta call B. If I'm having a victory, I'm calling B, right? When I
Exactly.
see you posting out and about on a stage, getting people fired up about whatever it is, entrepreneurship, resilience, mindset, whatever. So like you have to find those like-minded people.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
who you need to be around.
Because and I actually just shared this Friday. I was a speaker. You know, people who are where you're trying to get to, they've experienced it. So they understand it.
Hmm.
And so when you go to them and say, yeah, today is not a good day. Look, I remember the end of 23. Um I that is the year that I hit $1 million in revenue with my home
Hmm.
health care. And on the flip side of that, I was losing. Okay. The cash flow was messed up. Payroll was crazy. And I was just like, must be failing. Like something is
Right.
not right. And I called a friend of mine he's been in business for 15 years. You know, men just always think about stuff so differently than women.
Yep.
But he just completed his 15-year in business. And I was telling him all the stuff that I was going through, and he was like, Bianca, welcome to the big leagues. Like that's the big boss problems right here. Like, what? He's like, yeah, that you're bringing in some real numbers. And
Yeah, that's around the time you fired everybody. You had a do-over.
it fired everybody. Exactly. It was just craziness going on within the day-to-day operations. But I had to hear it from someone,
Yeah,
he's doing
he's ahead of you.
10, 15,
Yeah,
20
yeah,
million. So he's
yeah,
been at that 1 million mark. He's like, girl, please, like, and the time when, but you need people who are going to speak to your weaknesses or your insecurities in a way where they can get you to shift
hmm,
and understand the lesson or the brighter side or the contrast, because while you're in it, you're like, what in the
yeah. You're like, I'm fighting for my life out here.
this was throwing hands, okay? And you talk about resilience, it had me down on the ground in the chokehold, okay? But yeah, just talking to him and then other mentors. And that's
Hmm.
when, I actually found out that I had blazed another trail, because only 1.9% of women business owners reach revenues of 1 million or
That's
more.
that's right. That's right. It's like you're in the 1%, girl.
So everybody was doing millions. They like, no, that is
No,
not the case. So have grace. Give yourself a break. Like, you don't know what you don't know.
right.
Okay, now get focused. What do you need to learn so we can kind of start shifting stuff around? And yeah.
Yeah, and look where you are today,
Yeah.
right? But you had to make some hard decisions
Hmm.
as a leader, as a business owner, but you got the help that you needed, you got the advice you needed, and then again, it's about action.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
about action. It's like you can talk about what you're gonna, what you did, what you coulda, shoulda, like, but like until you do it,
Exactly.
and then I always say it's like throwing spaghetti against a wall, right? It's one giant experiment. I'm
Yep.
gonna try this, see if it works. I think this is probably the best way to go, but then
Yep.
being willing to pivot, right?
Yep.
And pivot again. So Bianca, the final question that I always ask everybody is, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today? So, and you've done a lot of brave things, trust me.
The bravest thing I've probably ever done was just always be me. Again, a very unconventional path, when all of my friends were going on to college and HBCUs and going away to school. I was like, do that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when but and I think I've shared with you this before. Society standards is like, society sets these standards and we conform to them.
Totally.
And it's like, who made these rules? Like, who No,
Right.
who is the person responsible for making these rules that the masses follow? So, you know, I could have easily got drawn into, I don't have a college degree, this and that. No, like that actually is my superpower, really,
I would
right?
completely, completely.
And then going on to the fire department, disrupting that whole thing,
Hmm.
staying true to myself,
Right.
whether though y'all like it or not.
Right.
Bianca's going to show up, Bianca. And now just leading, an organization where you mentioned earlier, my pet, like I just love helping people and older adults. They are my people, and so statistically, I'm not supposed to be here, right?
Correct. Not a
And
West Baltimore latchkey girl.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, the
Not
narrative.
just,
Yeah, the
yeah,
narrative of that area, that neighborhood. But again, your mom kept you in line. You were more afraid
yeah.
of what she was going to say if you got yourself
Oh, yeah.
pregnant, addicted, in
Right.
jail.
No,
Like that was not going to happen under her watch.
not at all. Not at all. And so, yeah, the bravest thing I've ever done is just follow Bianca's path.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
either
yeah.
gonna learn or I'm gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing I see for you is so yes, your older people are your people, but you know what I really see is this cohort of women who look like you, that you get them on that allied healthcare path quicker, faster, um, and convince them they don't have to take that traditional route. They can also get their foot in the door through any number of training programs to then you can place them quickly so they get some
Yep,
income. And then if they have aspirations to go to whatever,
yep,
become a doctor, huh? It could be
yep.
anything. You get your foot in the door and you start learning those clinical things. So I see the humanitarian in you in helping that generation of people that may not have the wise master, mistress, guider, who
Right.
you got the battle scar wounds to say, yes, there is a path here. There is a trajectory for you here. This is a well-paying industry that you can work your way up. There's so many opportunities for working moms, whether it's,
Hmm.
part-time, full-time, split your time between a patient first to ride in an ambulance. Like there's so
Yep,
many options, and you're a bridge builder in that you form these relationships deep and strong with these organizations. And so you're that connector that pulls everybody together, right?
yep,
Because right now, what do they say? Like 10 million people a day turn 65. It's some
yep.
crazy number that's going to go until like another 10 years. And so people want to stay in their homes longer. They might not have the money to go into assisted living or independent living. And so having people that meet you where you are, you're solving a lot of problems, really,
Yep,
right?
yep.
You're like, I got a pipeline, bloop, right?
Right.
And you're that person that's like, oh, you need people here. Here's your people. Oh,
Yep,
you know what I'm saying? And so you're helping a lot of different populations through the work that you're doing now. So I'm just go second seven figures because you got your house in order and the flywheel is going. And it's kind of crazy to think that 9/11 was kind of the impetus that started I mean, there
ain't
was
that
stuff
crazy?
before that, but everybody says, where were you on 9/11? What did that do for you? What was the impact? And like you've turned that situation into good in the world for
Yep,
so many people. The
yeah,
relief that you give the children of the elderly people who they have to keep working, right?
yes,
And they don't want to be their parents' caregiver
exactly,
24/7. They don't
exactly.
they don't have the clinical training. They don't know the protocols. They don't, they might have money, they might not have money, but like you find a way to make it work for them.
Yes, yes, yep,
Yep. Well, I wish Be Wise more global stages, more causes, more, and I just adore you, Bianca. And I think that more people in the world need to A, know who you are and B, hear your story, but also to just follow your mindset coaching because it is so inspirational. I love your book. I love your speaking. I love how you're able to just really draw people in that audience, and really get them thinking different, right? Because like I could probably tell you that when people are in your audience, their light bulbs are going off.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yep.
because you drop those gems, right? And it's like,
Exactly.
Bianca gem, Bianca gem.
Exactly.
So keep being
Exactly.
you, keep being you, because I think it's just, I don't know. I love you, Bianca. I just do.
I love you too. Thanks,
Oh,
right.
Bianca Love Fest, Tracy Love Fest. But no, I'm just so grateful that we met, and I'm so grateful that we've become friends, and we can kind of be like-minded and be in each other's corners and say,
Exactly.
hey, you ought to
And
go
I'm
talk
glad the
there.
brave girl is back because your people need to hear these stories.
They
Exactly.
do.
And
They do. They do. And I'm energized to kind of put my work out into the world. And I feel
yep.
like, you call me the fairy godmother of storytelling. And I think it's curating those stories is my
Yep.
gift, and connecting people to other people's stories. And, at the end of the day, we're all human and we all have these different dimensions, but I want like a more inclusive and just world. That's my dream.
Yeah.
And if I can do it through whatever content creation gifts I have, or writing, or whatever, speaking, that's my gift to the world, right? And I
Yep.
think the more you step into just, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to show up,
And that's it.
this, and just see where it goes and be
It makes
unattached.
life so much easier.
It really does.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. I hope you found a gem or two that will motivate you to change your mindset, pursue your dreams, and fulfill your soul's purpose. I believe that we can go farther and faster when we connect in the spirit of positivity and understand how we individually can serve humanity. The world needs more love, so keep shining, ladies. I can be found on my corner of the interwebs at tracym.com, and I'd love to connect on social. Just Google me and my SEO will tell you more about what I'm up to as I step into my purpose as a storyteller. I love you, brave girls. Now, it's time for you to step up your game and become the best possible version of you. I believe in you, and you've got this.